Elena Torres thought collapsing at the gates of Philadelphia's most feared Mafia boss would mean certain death for her and her 7-year-old daughter. Instead, when little Mila whispered, "Sir, my mom didn't wake up," to the stone-cold killer everyone called untouchable, something cracked in Luca Moretti's armor that hadn't moved in 3 years. The same man who could end lives with a phone call was about to risk everything: his empire, his reputation, his carefully guarded heart, for a waitress and a mute child running from demons of their own. But Elena had no idea that her violent ex-boyfriend was working for Luca's deadliest enemy, or that her desperate plea for shelter would ignite a war that would either destroy them all or forge the most unexpected family born from blood, bullets, and broken hearts. What happens next will prove that sometimes the most dangerous man in the city is exactly who you need when the world turns against you. Subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this story about finding love in the darkest places is about to get more intense than you can imagine. The fluorescent lights in Tony's diner buzzed overhead like angry wasps. Elena Torres wiped down the same table for the third time, her hand shaking slightly as she glanced at the clock. 10 minutes until closing. 10 minutes until she had to walk home through streets that felt more dangerous every night. "Mom?" Mila's soft voice came from behind the counter where she sat coloring. At 7 years old, she was too quiet, too still. Ever since her father died 2 years ago, Mila barely spoke above a whisper. "Almost done, baby," Elena called back, forcing a smile. The bruises on her arms ached as she lifted the coffee pot. She pulled her sleeves down, making sure no one could see the purple marks her ex-boyfriend had left 3 days ago. Tony emerged from the kitchen, his face red and sweaty. "Elena, we need to talk." Her stomach dropped. She followed him to the back office, where unpaid bills covered his desk like fallen leaves. "I'm sorry, but I can't keep you on," Tony said without meeting her eyes. "Business is slow, and with that money you owe—" "Please," Elena whispered, "just give me 2 more weeks. I'll find the money somehow." Tony shook his head. "I already gave you 3 extra weeks. I can't do it anymore." Elena's world tilted sideways. Without this job, she had nothing. No money for rent, no money for food, no way to keep Mila safe. She walked back to the dining room on unsteady legs. Mila looked up from her coloring book, her dark eyes too knowing for a child. "We have to go now, sweetheart." Mila packed her crayons without asking questions. She never asked questions anymore. They stepped into the cold Philadelphia night. Elena pulled Mila close as they walked down the empty sidewalk. Broken streetlights cast long shadows that seemed to reach for them. Elena's phone buzzed. A text message made her blood freeze. "I know where you work. I know where you live. You can't hide from me forever." Another message followed immediately. "You belong to me, Elena. You and the kid." Her ex-boyfriend Carlos had been calling and texting for weeks. Each message was angrier than the last. Elena had hoped he would give up, find someone else to hurt. But Carlos didn't give up on anything he considered his property. "Mommy?" Mila tugged on her coat. "Are you okay?" Elena knelt down and smoothed Mila's dark hair. "Everything's fine, baby. We're just going to take a little walk." But nothing was fine. Carlos had friends now, dangerous friends who did bad things for money. Elena had seen them watching her apartment building, sitting in cars with tinted windows. Headlights appeared behind them. Elena's heart hammered as she recognized the rumble of Carlos's truck engine. She grabbed Mila's hand and ducked into an alley. "Run, baby. We need to run." They zigzagged through back streets Elena barely knew. Mila's little legs moved as fast as they could, but she was getting tired. The headlights kept following, getting closer. Elena pulled Mila behind a dumpster and held her breath. The truck drove past slowly, Carlos leaning out the window with his phone flashlight, searching. After what felt like hours, the truck disappeared. Elena and Mila crept out of their hiding spot. "I'm scared," Mila whispered. "I know, sweetheart. Me too." They couldn't go home. Carlos would be waiting there. Elena had $17 in her wallet and nowhere to go. She remembered seeing a church a few blocks away. Churches were supposed to be safe places, weren't they? St. Mary's stood like a fortress against the darkness. Elena tried the front door, but it was locked. Around back, she found a small side door that opened into a storage room filled with folding chairs and Christmas decorations. "We'll just stay here tonight," Elena told Mila as they curled up on the cold floor. "Tomorrow we'll figure something out." But Elena couldn't sleep. Every sound made her jump. Every car that passed could be Carlos coming to find them. She held Mila close and tried not to think about what would happen if he caught them. In the morning light, the storage room looked even sadder than it had in darkness. Mila was pale and shivering. Elena had no food to give her, no warm clothes. A knock on the door made Elena's heart stop. "Hello?" A woman's voice called. "Is someone in there?" Elena opened the door slowly. An elderly woman in a church volunteer t-shirt stood outside with a concerned expression. "Oh my," the woman said, taking in their appearance. "Are you all right?" "We just needed somewhere to stay for the night," Elena said quickly. "We're not causing trouble." The woman's face softened. "I'm Mrs. Patterson. Come inside where it's warm." She led them into the main church and brought them coffee and donuts from the fellowship hall. Mila ate hungrily while Elena tried to explain their situation without revealing too much. "Honey," Mrs. Patterson said gently, "you need real help, the kind I can't give you here." "I don't know where else to go." Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a long moment. Then she leaned forward and lowered her voice. "There's a man named Luca Moretti. He helps people sometimes. People who have nowhere else to turn." Elena knew that name. Everyone in Philadelphia knew that name. Luca Moretti ran the biggest crime family in the city. He was dangerous, powerful, and not someone normal people approached for help. "I can't go to him," Elena said. He's not what you think," Mrs. Patterson interrupted. "My nephew got in trouble with some bad people a few years ago. Mr. Moretti helped him when no one else would. Sometimes the devil you don't know is better than the devil you do." She wrote an address on a piece of paper and pressed it into Elena's hand. "Think about it. But don't think too long. Those bruises on your arms tell me time is running out." Elena stared at the address. The Moretti estate was on the outskirts of the city, behind gates and guards. It might as well have been on the moon. But as they left the church, Elena's phone buzzed again. "Found your friend Tony. He told me some interesting things about where you've been staying. Getting warmer?" Elena's hands shook as she deleted the message. Carlos was closing in. Soon he would find them. And when he did... She looked down at Mila, who was holding her hand and trusting her to keep them safe. Elena had failed at almost everything in her life. Her marriage had ended in tragedy. She couldn't hold a job. She couldn't even protect her daughter from a violent man. But maybe, just maybe, she could be brave enough to try something desperate. "Come on, baby," she said, pulling out the address. "We're going to take a long walk." The Moretti estate was 15 miles outside the city. Elena had no car and no money for a bus. They would have to walk. They started walking as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Elena carried Mila when her little legs got tired, then put her down when her own arms gave out. The address felt like a lifeline and a death sentence at the same time. Cars rushed past them on the highway. Elena kept looking over her shoulder, expecting to see Carlos's truck at any moment. Her feet were blistered and bleeding in her cheap work shoes. Mila's face was red from the sun. "Are we almost there?" Mila asked as they stopped to rest by a guardrail. Elena looked at the address again. They still had miles to go, and the sun was getting lower in the sky. "Soon, sweetheart, we're going to see a man who might help us." "Is he nice?" Elena didn't know how to answer that question. Luca Moretti might help them, or he might turn them away. He might be their salvation or their destruction. "I hope so, baby. I really hope so." As the sun began to set, Elena saw iron gates in the distance, tall, imposing, and clearly expensive. Her heart pounded as they got closer. Security cameras turned to track their movement. This was it, the point of no return. Elena's vision blurred from exhaustion and fear. Her legs felt like water. Mila was almost too tired to walk. "Mommy, I can't." Mila's voice was barely a whisper. Elena picked her up one more time, staggering toward the gates. Each step was harder than the last. The world started spinning around her. She made it to the iron bars before her strength gave out completely. Elena collapsed, pulling Mila down with her onto the cold pavement. The last thing she saw was Mila's frightened face looking down at her. Then everything went black. "Sir, my mom didn't wake up." The words floated through Elena's darkness like a lifeline, Mila's voice thin and scared, calling for help from strangers. Elena tried to open her eyes, tried to reach for her daughter, but her body wouldn't respond. She could hear footsteps, voices, the crackle of a radio. "Boss needs to see this," a man's voice said. More footsteps, the sound of gates opening. "Get the doctor," someone commanded. The voice was deep, calm, and used to being obeyed. Elena felt strong arms lifting her. The world swayed as she was carried somewhere warm and safe. She wanted to fight, to protect Mila, but she had no strength left. The last thing she heard before consciousness faded completely was Mila's small voice asking, "Is my mommy going to be okay?" And a man's voice, gentler than she expected, answering, "We're going to take very good care of both of you." Elena Torres had bet everything on a stranger's kindness. Now all she could do was hope that desperation hadn't led her daughter into greater danger. In her dreams, she was still running. But for the first time in months, she was running towards something instead of away. Elena woke to the sound of rain against windows and the smell of fresh bread. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The bed beneath her was softer than anything she'd slept on in years. Silk sheets, not the scratchy ones from her apartment. The room was bigger than her entire living space, with dark wood furniture and paintings that looked expensive. Then reality crashed back. Mila. Elena shot upright, her heart hammering. "Mila!" She stumbled out of bed, still wearing her dirty waitress uniform from the night before. Her feet were bandaged, and someone had cleaned the cuts on her arms. The room had 2 doors. One led to a bathroom, the other to a hallway lined with more paintings and soft carpet. "Mila," Elena called again, running down the hall. Her voice echoed in the huge space. The hallway opened into a kitchen that belonged in a magazine. All granite counters and shiny appliances. And there, sitting at a small table with a plate of eggs and toast, was Mila. "Mommy!" Mila jumped up and ran into Elena's arms. Elena held her daughter tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. "Are you okay? Did anyone hurt you?" "No one hurt me. Mrs. D'Amico made me breakfast. She's really nice." Elena looked up to see an older woman with silver hair and kind eyes watching them from the stove. She was wearing an apron and stirring something that smelled like heaven. "You must be Elena," the woman said with a slight Italian accent. "I'm Maria D'Amico. I take care of the house. Where are we? Elena asked, still holding Mila. The Moretti estate. You collapsed at the gates last night. Mr. Moretti had you brought inside. The kitchen door swung open, and Elena's breath caught. She'd seen pictures of Luca Moretti in newspapers, but they didn't capture how tall he was, or how his dark eyes seemed to see everything. He wore an expensive black suit that fit perfectly over broad shoulders. His dark hair was neat, his jaw clean-shaven. He looked like money and power and danger all rolled into one. Miss Torres, his voice was deep and calm. How are you feeling? Elena instinctively stepped back, pulling Mila behind her. Fine. Thank you for helping us, but we should go. Luca tilted his head slightly. Go where? The question hung in the air. Elena had no answer. No home, no job, no money, nowhere to run. We'll figure something out. With Carlos Romano looking for you? Elena's blood turned to ice. You know about Carlos? I know he's been asking questions around the neighborhood. I know he has friends who aren't very nice. And I know he's working for my cousin Vittorio, who has a talent for finding people's weak spots and using them. Luca moved closer, and Elena fought the urge to step back again. He was intimidating without trying to be, like a wolf that didn't need to growl to show its teeth. You walked 15 miles with a child to reach my gates, Luca continued. That tells me you're either very brave or very desperate. Both, Elena whispered. Something flickered in Luca's dark eyes. Mrs. D'Amico, would you take Mila to see the garden? I think there are some cats out there she might like. Mila looked up at Elena with questioning eyes. Elena nodded, though every instinct screamed against letting her daughter out of sight. When they were alone, Luca gestured for Elena to sit at the kitchen table. He poured 2 cups of coffee from an expensive-looking machine and sat across from her. Tell me about Carlos. There's nothing to tell. He's my ex. He won't leave us alone. That's not nothing. Elena stared into her coffee cup. The kitchen was warm and safe, but she knew safety was temporary. It always was. We dated for about 6 months, she said finally. After my husband died, I was lost. Carlos seemed nice at first, protective. But protective became controlling, and controlling became... She gestured to the fading bruises on her arms. When did you leave him? 3 weeks ago. I thought he'd give up, find someone else. But he keeps saying I belong to him. That Mila belongs to him too, even though she's not his daughter. Luca's jaw tightened, and now he's working for Vittorio. I don't know who that is. My cousin. We don't get along. Luca's voice was dry. Vittorio likes to collect things he can use against people, information, debts, families. If he has Carlos looking for you, it's because he thinks you're useful somehow. Elena felt sick. Useful how? As leverage against me, probably. Word gets around that I helped you. Vittorio thinks if he hurts you, it hurts me. But you don't even know me. Luca was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window where Mila was chasing a gray cat around a flower bed. My wife and son were killed 3 years ago, he said finally. Car bomb meant for me. They were just wrong place, wrong time. Elena's heart clenched. I'm sorry. The point is, Vittorio knows I have a weakness for protecting families. He'll use that against me if he can. Then we should leave, right now. I won't be responsible for causing you trouble. Luca looked at her directly for the first time. Where would you go? I don't know. Somewhere far away. With $17 and no car? Elena, you wouldn't make it 10 miles before Carlos found you. The truth hit her like a slap. She was trapped, had been trapped since the moment she left Carlos, maybe before that. What do you want from us? She asked. Nothing. You stay here until I deal with Vittorio and Carlos. Then you're free to go wherever you want. And if I say no? Luca shrugged. Then you leave now, and I hope you and your daughter make it through the night. It wasn't really a choice. They both knew that. How long? Elena asked. A few weeks. Maybe a month. A month in a stranger's house. A dangerous stranger who killed people for a living. Elena looked out at Mila, who was now sitting cross-legged in the grass while the gray cat rubbed against her legs. For the first time in weeks, her daughter looked relaxed. Okay, Elena said, but I want to earn my keep. I can cook, clean, help around the house. Mrs. D'Amico handles all that. Then give me something else to do. I won't be a charity case. Luca studied her face. You're proud. I'm practical. People who don't earn their place get thrown out when they're not useful anymore. Something that might have been a smile touched the corner of Luca's mouth. Fair enough. We'll find you something to do. The kitchen door opened, and a man about Luca's age walked in. He was shorter than Luca, but broader, with scars on his knuckles and eyes that missed nothing. This is Johnny Russo, Luca said. My right hand. Johnny, Elena Torres, and her daughter Mila. Johnny nodded politely, but Elena could see the questions in his eyes. He thought she was trouble. Maybe he was right. Boss, Johnny said, we need to talk. Luca stood up. Elena, Mrs. D'Amico will show you to your room. There are clothes for both you and Mila. If you need anything, ask. Wait, Elena said. What are the rules? Rules? You're letting strangers stay in your house. There have to be rules. Luca considered this. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't answer the door. Don't use the phone without permission. Don't ask questions about business. What about Mila? She can go anywhere on the property during the day. At night, stay in your rooms. It sounded like a prison, but Elena had been in worse prisons. At least this one had good food and warm beds. Thank you, she said. Luca nodded and walked out with Johnny. Elena heard them talking in low voices as their footsteps faded down the hall. Mrs. D'Amico came back inside with Mila, who was holding a small yellow flower. The cats like me, Mila announced. There are 5 of them, and they all have names. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Elena smoothed Mila's hair. Mrs. D'Amico is going to show us where we're staying. Their room was down the hall from where Elena had woken up. Actually, it was 2 rooms connected by a doorway. A bedroom for Elena and a smaller room for Mila, decorated with stuffed animals and children's books. Mr. Moretti had me set this up for the little one, Mrs. D'Amico explained. I hope it's all right. Elena stared at the room. Someone had thought about what a 7-year-old girl might need and provided it. The gesture was so unexpected it made her chest tight. It's perfect, she managed. Mrs. D'Amico showed them the closet, which was full of clothes in their sizes. Nothing fancy, but clean and new. How did he know our sizes? Elena asked. Mr. Moretti is very thorough, Mrs. D'Amico said diplomatically. After Mrs. D'Amico left, Elena and Mila explored their temporary home. The rooms had their own bathroom with a huge bathtub. The windows looked out over gardens and woods that seemed to go on forever. Mommy, Mila said as Elena helped her into clean clothes, are we safe here? Elena paused with Mila's shirt halfway over her head. I think so, baby. But remember what we practiced. If anything bad happens, you run and hide until I come find you, okay? Mila nodded solemnly. At 7, she already knew too much about bad things happening. That night, Elena lay awake listening to the sounds of the big house. Footsteps in hallways, doors opening and closing, the distant hum of voices. Luca Moretti's world was foreign to her, but it felt safer than anything she'd known in months. Around midnight, she heard Mila crying. Elena went into the smaller room and found her daughter sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "I had the dream again. About Daddy." Elena's heart broke a little more. Mila still had nightmares about the car accident that killed her father. They'd been getting better, but stress always made them worse. "It's okay," Elena whispered, climbing into the small bed and holding her daughter close. "Daddy's in heaven, remember? He can't get hurt anymore." "But what if something happens to you?" "Nothing's going to happen to me." "Promise?" Elena closed her eyes and made a promise she hoped she could keep. "I promise." As Mila fell back asleep, Elena stared out the window at the moonlit grounds. Somewhere out there, Carlos was looking for them. Somewhere, dangerous men were making plans that involved her and Mila. But tonight, they were safe. Tonight, they were warm and fed and protected by a man who understood what it meant to lose family. Elena just hoped the price for that protection wouldn't be more than she could afford to pay. In the morning, she would start figuring out how to earn her place in Luca Moretti's world. Tonight, she would hold her daughter and pretend that safety could last forever. Outside their window, guards walked the perimeter of the estate, and security cameras watched every shadow. Inside, a mother and daughter slept peacefully for the first time in weeks, while down the hall, a dangerous man sat in his study looking at old photographs and wondering if protecting them was worth the war they would surely bring. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through tall windows and the smell of bacon drifting from somewhere downstairs. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. The Moretti estate, safety behind walls and guards, a dangerous man's protection. Mila was already awake, sitting by the window and watching the cats in the garden. "They're playing," Mila said without turning around. "The orange one is chasing the gray one, but I think they're friends." Elena smiled and kissed the top of her daughter's head. "Want to go get some breakfast?" In the kitchen, Mrs. D'Amico was cooking what looked like enough food for 10 people. She smiled when she saw them. "Good morning, dear ones. Sit, sit. You need to eat more." Elena accepted a plate of eggs and toast, grateful for the kindness. She was still wearing the clothes from yesterday, clean jeans and a soft blue sweater that fit perfectly. "Mrs. D'Amico," Elena said carefully, "is there work I could do around the house? I meant what I said about earning my keep." "Oh, child, you don't need to worry about that." "Yes, I do. Please, I need to feel useful." Mrs. D'Amico studied her face and seemed to understand. "Well, I suppose I could use help with the laundry, and maybe you could help me plan meals? Mr. Moretti eats the same 5 things over and over. A man needs variety." It wasn't much, but it was something. Elena felt a small weight lift from her shoulders. Johnny appeared in the doorway, looking serious. "Where's the boss?" "His study," Mrs. D'Amico replied, "but he said not to disturb him until 9. Johnny checked his watch and frowned. Elena got the feeling that Luca Moretti wasn't a man who usually slept late. After breakfast, Elena helped Mrs. D'Amico with dishes while Mila played with building blocks at the kitchen table. The work felt good, normal. For a few minutes, Elena could pretend they were just visiting relatives. Then Luca walked in, and the pretense shattered. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept much. His usual perfect appearance was slightly rumpled, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie loosened. But he still commanded attention just by being in the room. "Good morning," he said, accepting coffee from Mrs. D'Amico. "Morning," Elena replied, suddenly aware of how domestic the scene must look. Her washing dishes, Mila playing quietly, Mrs. D'Amico bustling around. Like a family. Luca's eyes found Mila, who had looked up from her blocks when he entered. "What are you building?" he asked. Mila held up a lopsided structure made of red and blue blocks. "It's a house, with a big yard for cats." "That's a good house," Luca said seriously. "Very secure." Mila beamed at the praise and went back to her building. Johnny appeared again, looking more urgent this time. "Boss, we really need to talk." Luca nodded and started to follow him out. Then he paused and looked back at Elena. "Stay inside today. Don't go out to the gardens." "Why? What's wrong?" "Just a precaution." But Elena could see the tension in his shoulders, the way Johnny's hand rested near his jacket. Something was happening. After they left, Elena tried to focus on normal tasks. She helped Mrs. D'Amico fold laundry, played blocks with Mila, read storybooks in their bright sitting room. But she couldn't shake the feeling that danger was circling outside the safe walls of the house. Around noon, she heard cars in the driveway. Multiple engines, doors slamming. Elena moved to the window and saw 3 black SUVs parked near the front door. "Mrs. D'Amico," Elena called. The older woman came quickly, took one look out the window, and paled. "Take Mila upstairs. Now. Lock your door and don't come out until I tell you." Elena's heart started racing. "What's happening?" "Just go, please." Elena scooped up Mila and carried her quickly upstairs. Mila could sense the tension and didn't protest. They made it to their room just as Elena heard the front door open and multiple sets of footsteps entering the house. Elena locked their door and pulled Mila into the smaller bedroom, away from the windows. She could hear voices downstairs but couldn't make out words. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Mila whispered. "I don't know, baby. We're just going to wait here until it's safe." They sat on Mila's bed, Elena's arms wrapped protectively around her daughter. Minutes crawled by. The voices downstairs got louder, then quieter, then loud again. Then Elena heard something that made her blood freeze. Carlos's voice drifting up through the old house. "Know she's here somewhere. Saw the kid through the window yesterday." Elena's heart pounded so hard she was sure everyone in the house could hear it. Carlos was here, in Luca's house. How was that possible? More voices, including one Elena recognized as Luca's. He sounded calm, controlled, but there was an edge underneath that hadn't been there this morning. "Mila," Elena whispered, "remember our game? Hide and seek?" Mila nodded, eyes wide. "I need you to go in the closet and hide behind the clothes. Don't come out no matter what you hear, not until I come get you. Can you do that?" "I'm scared." "I know, sweetheart, but you're so brave, just like Daddy always said." Mila climbed into the closet and nestled behind a row of dresses. Elena closed the door just as she heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy footsteps. Too many of them. Elena looked around the room desperately. There was nowhere to hide, and the windows were too high to climb out of. She grabbed a lamp from the nightstand. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. The footsteps stopped outside their door. Elena held her breath. Someone tried the handle. When it didn't turn, they knocked. "Elena, I know you're in there." Carlos's voice was smooth, almost friendly. "Come on out, baby. We need to talk." Elena didn't move, didn't breathe. "Fine. We'll do this the hard way." The door splintered off its hinges as someone kicked it in. Carlos stepped through, followed by 2 men Elena didn't recognize. They were bigger than Carlos, with cold eyes and expensive suits. "There's my girl," Carlos said, smiling like he was greeting an old friend. "You've been a very naughty girl, Elena, making me chase you all over the city." "Get out," Elena said, surprised her voice was steady. "You're not supposed to be here." "Actually, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Mr. Romano has business with Mr. Moretti, and I'm just here to collect what's mine." One of the men with Carlos was looking around the room. "Where's the kid?" "What kid?" Elena said quickly. Carlos laughed. "Don't play dumb. It doesn't suit you. The little girl you've been dragging around. Mr. Romano wants to meet her." Elena raised the lamp higher. "Touch my daughter, and I'll kill you myself." "Still got that fire. That's what I always loved about you." Carlos stepped closer, and Elena swung the lamp at his head. He caught her wrist easily and twisted until she dropped it. Now, no need for violence. We're all friends here." Elena heard a soft sound from the closet, just a tiny whimper. Carlos heard it too. His smile got wider. "Found her?" One of the men moved toward the closet. Elena threw herself at him, clawing and hitting with everything she had. He backhanded her casually, and she crashed into the wall. Through the ringing in her ears, Elena heard the closet door open and Mila's terrified scream. "No!" Elena struggled to get up, but Carlos grabbed her arms and held her still. "Such a pretty little girl," the man said, dragging Mila out of the closet. "She looks just like you, Elena." Mila was sobbing, reaching for her mother. Elena fought harder, but Carlos was too strong. "Let her go," Elena begged. "Please, she's just a child." "That's exactly why she's so valuable," Carlos said. "Mr. Romano knows how to motivate people." Elena's world was crumbling. They were going to take Mila. They were going to hurt her baby, and there was nothing Elena could do to stop it. Then she heard footsteps in the hallway. Fast, purposeful footsteps. Luca appeared in the broken doorway, and Elena had never been so happy to see another human being in her life. His face was calm, but his eyes were deadly. "Gentlemen," he said politely, "I think you're lost." The man holding Mila shifted nervously. Carlos tightened his grip on Elena's arms. "Mr. Moretti," Carlos said, "just collecting what's mine. I see two people who don't belong to you in my house. Mr. Romano says otherwise. Mr. Romano says a lot of things. Most of them are lies." Luca stepped into the room, and Elena could feel the temperature drop. "Let the woman and child go. Now." "Can't do that. Boss's orders." "Then you have a problem." What happened next was so fast, Elena barely saw it. One moment, Luca was standing calmly by the door. The next, the man holding Mila was on the ground, unconscious, and Luca was holding a struggling Mila against his chest. Carlos pulled out a gun and pressed it to Elena's temple. "Don't move, Moretti, or the woman dies." Elena felt the cold metal against her skin and closed her eyes. This was how it would end. Mila would grow up an orphan, just like Elena had feared. "Mila," Luca said quietly, "close your eyes and count to 10. Mila buried her face against Luca's shoulder and started counting in a shaky voice. On 7, Luca moved. Elena never saw exactly what happened. Carlos's gun went off, but the bullet hit the ceiling. Carlos screamed and collapsed, clutching his arm. The second man tried to run and made it 2 steps before Luca caught him. When it was over, Elena was sitting on the floor, shaking. Luca was holding Mila, who was crying but unharmed. Carlos and his men were unconscious or groaning in pain. "Are you hurt?" Luca asked Elena. Elena touched her face where the man had hit her. It was tender, but not serious. "I'm okay." Gianni appeared in the doorway with several other men. They looked at the scene and started dragging the intruders away without being asked. "Take them to the warehouse," Lucas said. "I'll deal with them later." As the room emptied, Elena struggled to stand. Her legs felt like water. Lucas set Mila down gently. "Are you all right, little one?" Mila nodded and ran to Elena, who wrapped her in the tightest hug of her life. "I was so scared," Mila whispered. "I know, baby, I know, but you were so brave." Luca watched them for a moment, then started to leave. "Wait," Elena called. "Thank you. You saved us." He turned back, and something in his expression made Elena's breath catch. Pain, guilt, and something else she couldn't name. "No one should have been able to get inside this house," he said. "You were supposed to be safe here. It's not your fault. It is my fault. I knew Vittorio would try something, and I wasn't prepared enough. But you stopped them. Next time, I might not be fast enough." Elena stood up slowly, still holding Mila. "Will there be a next time?" Luca's jaw tightened. "Not if I can help it." He started to leave again, then paused. "Pack your things. You're moving to the main house, closer to my room. It's more secure." After he left, Elena and Mila sat together on the ruined bed, holding each other and shaking. They were alive. They were safe. But Elena knew that safety was more fragile than she'd realized. As Mrs. D'Amico helped them move to new rooms, Elena found herself thinking about the way Luca had held Mila, gentle and protective. The way he'd moved to save them without hesitation. Maybe Luca Moretti was dangerous. Maybe staying here was the biggest risk Elena had ever taken. But as she tucked Mila into a new bed in a more secure part of the house, Elena realized something. For the first time since her husband died, she felt like someone was truly fighting for them. That had to be worth something, didn't it? Even if that someone was a man who could kill with his bare hands and sleep peacefully afterward. Elena wasn't sure if she was falling towards safety or destruction. Maybe both. But tonight, Mila was safe in her arms, and that was enough. 3 weeks after the attack, Elena still jumped at unexpected sounds. But the Moretti estate was quieter now, more peaceful. Luca had dealt with Vittorio and Carlos in ways Elena didn't ask about. All she knew was that the threats had stopped, and she could sleep through the night again. The new rooms were beautiful. Elena had a suite next to Luca's office, with huge windows overlooking the gardens. Mila's room was connected, decorated with fresh flowers and filled with books. Mrs. D'Amico had become like a grandmother to Mila, teaching her to cook simple meals and telling her stories about the old country. But the best change was in Mila herself. She talked more now, laughed more. Sometimes Elena caught her having whispered conversations with Luca in his study. The two dark heads bent over puzzles or picture books. Elena was in the kitchen helping Mrs. D'Amico prepare dinner when she heard Mila's delighted laughter from the next room. Through the doorway, she could see Luca sitting on the floor, apparently being attacked by stuffed animals, while Mila directed the battle. "The teddy bear is the king," Mila announced seriously. "He's trying to protect his castle from the dragon." "I see," Luca said, holding up a stuffed elephant. "What about the elephant?" "He's Switzerland. He doesn't take sides." Elena smiled despite herself. It was such a normal scene, but nothing about their situation was normal. "He's good with her," Mrs. D'Amico said quietly. "Yes, he is. You know, he never played before. Not since his own family died. I think your little one is healing something in him." Elena looked at the older woman with surprise. Mrs. D'Amico rarely talked about Luca's personal life. "What were they like? His wife and son?" Mrs. D'Amico's expression grew sad. "Beautiful people. Sophia was like sunshine in this house. And little Marco, he had his father's eyes but his mother's laugh. After they died, Mr. Moretti became like a ghost. He worked, he gave orders, but he wasn't really living." Through the doorway, Elena watched Luca help Mila build a fort out of couch cushions. His movements were careful, gentle. This was a side of him she was still getting used to. "The man who killed them?" Elena asked. "Dead. But it didn't bring them back or heal the hurt." Elena understood that kind of hurt. She'd carried it since her husband's car accident, the weight of loving someone who was gone forever. That evening, after Mila was asleep, Elena found herself walking through the house. She'd grown comfortable here, maybe too comfortable. The rooms felt familiar now, safe. She knew which stairs creaked, which windows had the best views, where Luca kept his coffee cups. She found him in his study, sitting behind a massive wooden desk covered with papers. He looked up when she knocked on the open door. "Come in." Elena settled into the chair across from his desk. "Mila wanted me to thank you for the stuffed elephant. She's already made him a general in her army." Switzerland became a military power? Apparently, elephants have hidden talents. Luca almost smiled. Elena had noticed he did that more often now, came close to smiling without quite getting there. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said. "Of course." "Why are you really helping us? And don't say it's just about Vittorio." "That threat is over." Luca set down his pen and leaned back in his chair. "You want the truth?" "Always." When I heard Mila that night, calling for help, it reminded me of Marco. The night he died, he kept asking for me. Where was Papa? Why wasn't I there to help him? Luca's voice grew quiet. I couldn't save my own son, but maybe I could save someone else's child. Elena felt her heart clench. "Luca, I don't expect anything from you or Mila. You can leave whenever you want. But as long as you're here, you're family. Family protects family." The word hung between them. Family. Elena hadn't had one since her husband died. She'd been so focused on surviving that she'd forgotten what it felt like to belong somewhere. "What if we don't want to leave?" The words came out before Elena could stop them. Luca studied her face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Mila is happy here. She feels safe, and Elena took a breath. "I feel safe, too, for the first time in years." "Elena, this world I live in, it's not safe. What happened with Carlos could happen again. There are always enemies, always threats. There are threats everywhere. At least here, we have someone willing to fight them." Luca was quiet for a long moment. "You don't know what you're asking." "I'm not asking for anything. I'm just saying we don't have to leave." "And what about when Mila gets older? When she starts asking questions about what I do, who I am?" Elena had thought about this. "We'll tell her the truth, that you're someone who protected us when we needed protection. Someone who gave us a home when we had nowhere to go. I've killed people, Elena. A lot of people. So have soldiers. So have police officers. The why matters more than the E. What?" Luca stood up and walked to the window. "You make it sound simple." "Maybe it is simple. Maybe we make it complicated because we're scared." "Scared of what?" Elena joined him at the window. The gardens were dark except for security lights, but she could see the shape of the greenhouse where Mila liked to help Mrs. D'Amico with herbs. "Scared of caring about someone again. Scared of losing them." Luca turned to look at her. "Is that what you're doing? Caring about me?" Elena's heart hammered, but she met his eyes. "Yes. That's dangerous. Everything worthwhile is dangerous." For a moment, they just looked at each other. Elena could see the war in Luca's expression, want and fear and hope all tangled together. Then he reached out and touched her face, his thumb tracing the fading bruise Carlos had left. "You deserve better than this," he said quietly. "I deserve what I choose, and I choose this." Luca's hand moved from her cheek to cup the back of her neck. Elena could feel the warmth of his skin, the slight tremor in his fingers that said he was as nervous as she was. "Elena." She rose on her tiptoes and kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative. Then Luca's arms came around her and pulled her closer, and the kiss deepened into something that made Elena's knees weak. When they broke apart, Elena was breathing hard. Are you sure? Luca asked against her forehead. I've never been more sure of anything. They heard footsteps in the hallway, and Elena quickly stepped back. Mrs. D'Amico appeared in the doorway, looking apologetic. I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mila is awake and asking for her mother. Elena smoothed her hair and tried to look normal. Of course, I'll be right there. As she started to leave, Luca caught her hand. We'll talk more tomorrow, he said. Yes, tomorrow. Elena found Mila sitting up in bed, rubbing her eyes. Mommy, I had a good dream this time. Tell me about it. Mila snuggled against Elena's side. We were all having a picnic. You and me, and Luca, and Mrs. D'Amico. And there were cats everywhere, and the sun was shining. It felt like home. Elena's throat tightened. That sounds like a beautiful dream. Do you think it could be real? I think good dreams have a way of coming true if we're brave enough to let them. Are you brave enough, Mommy? Elena thought about Luca's hands on her face, the way he'd kissed her like she was precious. I think so, baby. I think I might be. 6 months later, Elena woke to sunlight streaming through windows and the sound of Mila's laughter from the garden. She stretched and smiled, remembering the dream that had felt so real. But this wasn't a dream. This was her life now. She found Luca and Mila having breakfast on the terrace, Mila chattering about the kittens born to the gray cat she'd befriended that first day. Luca listened seriously, asking important questions about names and personalities. Good morning, Elena said, kissing Luca's cheek and smoothing Mila's hair. Mama, look! Mila held up a tiny orange kitten. His name is Pumpkin, and he chose me. Elena and Luca exchanged a look of shared amusement. In the past months, Mila had collected an impressive array of pets, all of whom lived in the estate's gardens and received royal treatment. He's beautiful, sweetheart. Mrs. D'Amico appeared with fresh pastries and coffee, beaming at the scene. Johnny wandered over from the security office, accepted coffee gratefully, and let Pumpkin climb on his shoulder. Elena looked around at the faces of the people who had become her family. It wasn't the family she'd planned, wasn't the life she'd expected, but it was theirs. Luca reached for her hand under the table, twining their fingers together. The simple gesture sent warmth through her chest. What are you thinking about? He asked quietly. Dreams coming true. Good dreams? Elena squeezed his hand and watched Mila giggle as Pumpkin tried to catch her hair ribbon. The best dreams. Later that morning, as Elena helped Mrs. D'Amico arrange flowers in the front hall, she heard voices in Luca's study. Business voices, serious and low. That part of his life still existed, would always exist, but it felt separate from the life they'd built together. Elena had learned to accept that Luca Moretti was two people, the dangerous man who protected what was his, and the gentle man who read bedtime stories and helped a little girl heal from trauma. She'd fallen in love with both versions. That afternoon, while Mila napped with 3 kittens piled on her bed, Elena and Luca walked through the gardens. They did this most days now, talking about everything and nothing, just enjoying being together. Johnny thinks we should get married, Luca said, as they sat on a bench overlooking the rose garden. Elena's heart skipped. What do you think? I think he's right. I think we should make this official. Is that a proposal? Luca turned to face her fully. Elena Torres, will you marry me? Will you let me be Mila's father officially? Will you help me remember what it means to be happy? Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Yes, yes to all of it. Luca kissed her there in the garden, surrounded by roses and sunshine and the promise of forever. When they told Mila over dinner, she clapped her hands and asked if she could be the flower girl. Then she wanted to know if this meant the kittens could come to the wedding. Absolutely, Luca said seriously. A wedding isn't a wedding without kittens. That night, as Elena tucked Mila into bed, her daughter asked, Mama, are we going to stay here forever? Do you want to? Yes, I love it here. I love Mrs. D'Amico and the cats and the garden, and I love Luca. He makes you smile again. Elena's heart overflowed. I love him too, sweetheart. Good, because I already asked him to be my new daddy, and he said yes. Elena laughed, wiping away happy tears. Did you now? Uh-huh. I told him daddies are supposed to protect people and read stories and give good hugs. He said he could do all those things. He certainly can. As Mila drifted off to sleep, Elena sat by her bedside and marveled at how far they'd come. From collapse at iron gates to belonging inside the walls, from desperation to hope, from survival to love. She found Luca in their bedroom, reading by lamplight. He looked up when she entered, and the love in his eyes still took her breath away. Thank you, she said, settling beside him. For what? For saving us, for giving us a home, for showing me it's possible to love someone again without losing myself. Luca set aside his book and pulled her close. You saved me too. You and Mila. You brought life back into this house. Elena nestled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Do you ever worry about the future? Every day. But then I remember that some things are worth worrying about. Some things are worth fighting for. And we're worth fighting for? Elena, you and Mila are worth everything. Outside their window, security lights illuminated the grounds where guards walked their rounds. Somewhere beyond the walls, the world continued, with all its dangers and uncertainties. But inside, a family slept peacefully. A little girl dreamed of kittens and sunshine. A woman who'd found love again rested in the arms of a man who'd learned to hope. And in the morning, they would wake up together, ready for whatever came next. Because they'd learned that the strongest walls weren't made of stone and steel. They were made of love, trust, and the courage to call a place home. Elena had walked 15 miles through darkness to reach Luca Moretti's gates, carrying her daughter and a heart full of desperation. She'd found so much more than shelter. She'd found her family. And sometimes, when the morning light hit the gardens just right and Mila's laughter rang through the halls, Elena could almost hear her husband's voice whispering on the wind, "Take care of our girl. Be happy. Love again." She had. She was. And she always would.